That's better. Thank you very much for coming here, and thank you for the introduction. So as she said, I work for the Fondation Campus Biotech in Geneva. It's a non-profit foundation created and supported by the University of Geneva, the Polytechnical School of Lausanne, and the state of Geneva. And in the state of Geneva, there is plenty of school again, and also the University Geneva Hospital. Basically, all this entity in the 2010 years, they think that putting together their money and their expertise will be a good idea. So everyone that do research in neuroscience around the Lake of Geneva can interact with each other. Okay, so as I say, we are situated in Geneva. We support research in neuroscience and neuroengineering. And we want to provide equipment and expertise in all the technology useful for neuroscience. We have plenty of platforms, which are very different. Preclinical neuroscience platform to be able to study molecule and cells. The neuromicrosystem platform to be able to do micro and nanofabrication for implantable devices, for example. A human cellular neuroscience platform which will work on human stem cell and organoids. So very neuroscience, but in the cell part. And also plenty of stuff to do human studies, such as clinical and sleep research platform, MEG, EEG, neuromodulation, MRI with a 3 Tesla and a 7 Tesla scanner. And today's spotlight is on the virtual reality. So what we work with 4 engineers on the platform. One is an expert in Unity, so it's a software development application. And our main focus is to be able to allow any researchers that come to us to do what they dream of in terms of technology and also in terms of application. Why do they want, they may use immersive application in neuroscience? It could allow the researcher to conduct experiment in virtual scenario, lifelike or not. So if you want to put your participant in front of a crowd, you can have it for a way much cheaper, for way more money than if you have to recruit a lot of actors and rent a theater. So it's cool. And the main focus is that it's safe, controlled, measurable, and reproducible. Safe because you are in a lab, you stay in the lab, but you can still do some experiments that look like the real behavior that you can have outside. It's controlled and measurable because you control everything in the application. If I want, in this situation of the theater, to have a baby crying at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, it will be the same exactly for every participant. And it's really measurable because you can bring in any data you want or bring out any data you want. If I want to record a lot of stuff, I can. There is this freedom of content and freedom of data collection that we want to provide to the people that work with us. I will come back to that after, but really be able to dream about something and we try to create it. Of course, we almost never use it alone. We combine it, and we are experts to do that, to combine this technology with other equipment such as motion capture, EEG, EMG, fMRI in both 3 Tesla and 7 Tesla, and also biomarkers, sure. Rapidly, at the other platform, we can rent equipment and rent rooms. That are plenty of diverse services, but the idea is like in the same place there is technology that are used by the researcher and the expertise and the people that know how to use the equipment stay in the place, and they can also provide a connection between researchers. Like if there is an experiment, if there is 2 researchers that work on the same subject, we can put them in contact to improve the output. What is important also for us is that we can go in the MRI with the system provided by NordicNeuroLab. And we added also a motion capture system from Qualisys that is very useful to do virtual reality. An example of multiple integration system, we had this study ongoing at the HUG with the Dr. Anush. We put together a wireless system with EEG, VR, EMG, and motion capture to be able to study a person walking in an environment. They were asked to walk in the forest and cross a river, and walk on two stones, and the stones were placed exactly where the force plate to record the force coming from the feet were placed. So basically, you have the sensation to be in this environment, to cross to recross the river, and you have the sensation to do like something like that. So it's very it may be challenging, but you're in fact in a laboratory, so it's completely safe. And you can induce some fear for the participant and some mechanism in the brain that were interesting to look at. For the MRI, that is what interests us today, our idea was to develop a complete platform that allow you to do VR with the very good definition of VR, because when you are in a VR environment and you do that, normally you can explore your environment. So the headset, you can turn around, look around you. It's not possible in an MRI scanner. So the solution we came up with was to be able to experiment your environment through your body. Basically, you can move your hand in synchronization between an avatar inside the VR application. So it's a simple and accurate movement for the avatar. We can't do very complicated movement because of the constraint of the tube, but we can do still movement, and we pay very attention to the accuracy of the movement, because one term of VR is that you are immersed in the environment, and there is this sense of embodiment that is quite important. And the brain, as you may as everyone know it, is very, very sensitive to errors. And if you make tiny errors in the movement, the break of presence really happened very fast. So it's important to continue to keep the immersion very well. Also, when you thought about movement in MRI, you will tell me that it's a nightmare and you don't want that because it's going to move the head. So we study that. We look into that, if it's feasible or not. What we see is that the hand movement are okay, but the leg or foot movement are not okay at all during an MRI, during the recording. So to be able to have the immersion of the avatar, we do the immersion in pre-task. Before recording any MRI data, we have the person moving his body, foot, and as he wants. And when we record the MRI, we ask him to stop moving and only moving the hand. So we will have a response task or stuff like that to do with the hand, but no more movement with the leg. Because we studied that the movement of the hand is okay, because the dislocation we found the shoulder doesn't induce too many movement of the head, and the quality of the data are still okay. We also work on the transition of the situation. If I put again the video, you will see that when I enter the MRI, there is also this shift in environment, and you see that it's an MRI room also in virtual, because we create the virtual twin of our actual MRI system directly to have this sensation, like you enter the MRI room, you lay down on the bed, you put the headset, and you still see the same ceiling you were seeing a few seconds before. And when you enter the MRI, you have this tilt. And basically, when you enter the MRI, there is a bit of distortion of the internal ear, which creates some sensation where moving the camera when you enter the MRI, you don't notice practically at all that your head is, your view is actually shifting. It's quite interesting to do experiment with your own body. You have the sensation to really look at your body, even if you don't look at it. We also developed custom tools for the MRI because of the constraint of the tube. You need to really have a specific situation. So the tennis balls are quite cool because you have a response button also on it. So you can complement your experiment too. For the hand on the right, they wanted to stimulate one part of the hand, so we make this part free. And the two tools at the top were to stimulate the body, so with a stick somewhere, either the body, the belly, or other stuff. Of course, we do a lot of development, and it's amazing. So here, the project that we want to work on. This is some example of projects that we develop on the platform and that are not MRI related here. I will come back to the MRI just after, but it's just to give you an example of what we can do and what actually researchers in Geneva want to do. Here it's a computer game, it's a multiplayer, it's an international recruitment. There is basically 2 random persons that can play across the world. And the study is on the communication strategy between 2 strangers. And the design is quite cool. Like, we can do research with nice graphical view. This one is even more interesting. It's a study on learning new word production. So the start of this application was with the healthy participants. So we create plenty of 3D objects that are all tools, all objects that are unknown to healthy participants. We want them to learn new words, so we create, it's in French still, but a gradin is a very old tool. The interesting thing here is that at the beginning they wanted to know if the VR was interesting in this type of experiment. Do VR help us learn and increase the memory? And the response is yes. They do a comparison between an application on a tablet, where you have the images, just the images of the object, and you have to record them. And to memorize them, you have to produce the word. So there is a speech recognition algorithm. So you produce the word. If you produce it well, you go to the next one. And the task in the VR was being in the market. So you have a task that is a bit more ecological, a bit more complete, like you have a shopping list and you go from one stand to another. And they were able to show a significantly higher score in short-term and long-term memory in favor of VR. So the context is at least interesting to have. Here it's an application that uses MRI data. It's a teaching tool for neuroanatomy courses. The idea is to be able to manipulate MRI data. So here it was recorded in the MRI at the campus. So meet my former colleague Antoine. It's an endoscope, so you can play a bit with the data by enter the brain and look at it and manipulate it. And also with a plane that is quite cool is that you can look at the data in different point of view. So here, I don't know if you see it, but basically you don't have to look at the data in a specific way as you are used to. So no sagittal, coronal, or axial. You can do it in 3D in every direction. So it could be really interesting with specific place on the brain where the structure are a bit complex and are not well easily understandable with only only one dimensional of the view of the MRI. What made me more interesting for you, it's what we can do and what we do at the Campus Biotech with the MRI and with the NordicNeuroLab goggle. Why do we use VR? I'm not going to enter in the specific results of this study, at least in part of the MRI. If you want them, you can look at the papers. I'm not a specialist, but I can actually explain a bit why we want to use them and what are the challenges here. So the first part was to be able to see, okay, we have this system, we have the possibility to do VR, we have the possibility to do motion capture in the MRI, but is it feasible? Is it correct to do actual science with this system? So the idea was to start with simple application where that we can compare if it's correct to do that. there was 3 different tasks, a perceptual task, so moving dots, and they were displayed on the screen at the top, at the end of the bed. The idea was to be able to reproduce a sort of 2D version of what you can do in MRI with just a mirror on the screen. There was also a motor task with the response box. So with your hand, you can either go up to response right, left, or after in the task to respond yes or no. And the cognitive task, this cognitive task is the on-body transformation, OBT, and it's quite used in the lab of Professor Olaf Blanke at the EPFL. The study was in collaboration with him. The idea is that you have to answer as fast as possible if the bracelet on the representation of an avatar in front of you, of a character in front of you, is on the right or the left. And the interesting thing on all these results is that it was quite. I will stay on this one just before. We did it in 3 conditions. So one is the classical condition for them with the black and white guy on the flat screen, and 2 other conditions where we try to increase a bit the 3D visualization. So one is the blue characters in so it's a 3D characters but on a 2D screen. And the last one is really a 3D characters in 3D. The interesting part here is that, so if I go maybe on the C part, the character angle, so it's a classical results. The reaction time was way faster when the characters is shown on the back that is shown on the front. So we reproduced the results with this system, and the interesting and new effect is that the 3D characters allow you to have a significant also decrease of the reaction time. Then there was a lot of comparison between the body ownership, because it's the main subject of this lab, to know if the presence of your body, and if you sense it as your own body, is able to improve different type of experiments and of results. And I said it before, the head tilt is on the middle, on the B. When you enter the MRI, you don't notice that you head tilt, and you see your body just after. In 60% of the case, they were unnoticed at all. In this case, Meyer and Gauthier, so it's the previous task, we developed them in collaboration with the EPFL. In this case, they were autonomous and they used the system by themselves without asking us to develop anything. So it's completely feasible. And they were looking at found the difference between the first-person perspective and the third-person perspective in the case of episodic memory. So when you see yourself as a first person, or when you see yourself as the third person, and also the fact that you are you are synchronous with your body, or there is a delay that appears between you and your movement. The task was to move your hand, and in synchronous, so the hand is moving correctly, the avatar is moving correctly as yourself, and in other cases, there is a delay that was put in, so you break the presence in the application. They were able to show that there is a strong sense of agency in the case where you are in first-person perspective, and when you are in synchronization with your body. The stimulation was, the synchronization was with moving your hand. And the interesting fact also is that you are able to see in if you have so in A and B, the experiment was basically to do all the process of experiment, but you didn't know that it was memory task. And basically, if you don't know if it's a memory task, they were able to show that if you're not aware of that, even if your body, you sense your body as your own, the results are not very different in the memory, like the score. When you recall the object that you try to memorize, are all the same. But in the case where you know that it's a memory task, the results are way better when you are in sync with your body. So basically, the sense of presence can influence your score in memory, your memory score, if you are aware that it's a memory task. They were also able to have a case patient, an amnesic one, with impairment in the hippocampus. And they were also, so this results, these results were able to continue with this output. The sense of agency as a link with the episodical memory only if your hippocampal is still in a good condition. So in this, I will change a bit the subject. We are still with this body sense, the body sensation. But here the idea was to be able to look in the grid cells. So normally grid cells, they are more studied in the animal model. So basically your brain is able to shape, your brain is able to represent the space around you really as a grid. And in this study, they wanted to explore the fact what happened with the same processes in the brain of a human, if it's the same thing or if it's different, and if you are able to have it, what's happened when you see your body or when you don't see your body. The idea was to same thing. There is this. The first part is free navigation, so you have to go to places just to map the brain and to create this map in your brain and to be able to recognize per participant the grid cells and their position and their representation in the brain. Yeah. So you go to a place and you have to recall it. Then there is the synchronous situation. So basically you see a body, but you see it as a first-person perspective. And you are stimulated on the belly. So there is this tool that come at you and touch your belly. In this case, the motion capture and the real application, the real world and the virtual world are synchronized. And again, you have to go back to the place where you were. And the asynchronous situation where the movement that you sense and what you see, there was a delay in between the two systems. The delay is a variable delay, like you don't get used to the delay because it's changed across time. And what were they able to see? So they were able to see a grid cell-like activity. They were very amazed by that, and it was really improved by the sensation of the strong self-identification. So the sensation that your body is the avatar body is your own body. And it seems again that with the MRI data, the body self-consciousness was really linked to this spatialization activity. One thing interesting also is that you can create a sort of illusion because with this first-person perspective, the camera is in the middle of the room, but when you have to recall what you see previously, you have a tendency to recall it a bit closer to the virtual body that you had. So this is what is represented with this self-location drift. One case here, it's a clinical study. It was using the old version of the NordicNeuroLab glasses, goggles. It's at the HUG, and the idea was to be able to allow the goal was to allow patients to do MRI even if they are claustrophobic. They were able to record 20 participants, 20 LC participants. And they show a really, so basically they enter the MRI, the same processes as before. So you see the room. When you enter the real room, you see the MRI room. And when you put the headset, you see exactly the same room, the virtual twin situation, to create this sense of presence. And the only difference is that there is no MRI, in fact. You don't see the tube. So when you enter, the bed moves. You move also in the room, but you don't see the tube. And it helped the claustrophobic patient to forget that they're in an MRI. And the score was quite cool. They really show that there is significant preference to VR. And a lot of participants that started with the VR were not really okay to do it again without the VR. There is still experiment ongoing, such as an experiment on the hand using precise motion capture. So it's a bit a challenge to do motion capture in the MRI because there is a lot of constraint. The camera should be far from the scanner to avoid to be disturbed by it or to disturb the MRI. So when you want to do precise tracking, it's quite complex. As you can see before, we used a trick as the tennis ball or with a plate on the hand to be able to move the hand but not the finger, because moving the finger is not well recognized. So here the case was to be able to record the pencil and having the pencil touching the hand. So we managed to do it, and the study is ongoing. And we'll not enter in the scientific question. Another study was launching the question about eye tracking with the system, because the NordicNeuroLab goggles, they are able to do eye tracking or pupillometry. And we are still in development and in improvement of this system, because it's quite a challenge. There is a lot of drift. Basically, when you are in a headset, in VR headset that has eye tracking, or when you do eye tracking in another experiment, you have a rest scene. Or in the case of VR, the headset is fixed on your head, so you don't move the head compared to the system that records your eye. In this case, the MRI, the participant is enter the MRI, is a bit tense, he look at the system, and after he relaxed, and his head drift. Or he's a bit uncomfortable, so he move a bit on the right, and it's starting to be a nightmare to do eye tracking. So we are still working to find solution to do correction of this drift, for example, between every trial or stuff like that. But we try to have it as much as possible to have good data, but as less as possible to avoid the break of presence and to avoid having a very long session for one experiment. The other implementation that you do is that manipulate a bit more your avatar. You can choose it's a male or female, the size, the morphology, and the skin color. It's a feature that our researcher ask us to do. In fact, generally, today I think we'll see a lot of study and a lot of tasks where you wanted to be as precise as possible and the task to be as simple as possible. Most of the time to have good data to analyze. But in our case, we do, in the campus biotech, we do more fundamental research with healthy participants, and they tend to drop a lot. So they came to you the first time, and when you have a long process, you have to have them coming to the MRI 3 times, for example. It's really horrible to have participants that come again. So one solution is to have applications that are more engaging and more immersive, to have them want to come to you. And even sometimes, at least for piloting, you don't have to pay them if they do VR and if they know that they are going to do a game. So that's one thing that was important for us, is to keep the participant inside the application, and the drop-off is quite important. Also, you can also explore new way of exploring the brain and more environmental task, the more complete task, as I showed you before. The market allow you to have something that in the memory that is a bit more complete than just the task as showing and trying to record just one object. You have a context, you have a task, and it's a bit more ecological. Thank you for your time, and do you have any question?
Really great, thank you. Let's go with one question.
Yeah, you said that the patient is fine with you tilting the head of your body.
Yeah.
Have you tried tilting the whole body instead, like this?
In fact,
because I was thinking that would have been nicer.
To be able to see you walking, for example?
Not necessarily, but sort of that you keep the angle for the head and just tilt the whole virtual body to, say, 45 degrees or something, and then
We didn't try it, mostly because the experiment itself, the lab that asked us for this experiment, they wanted to see the body. So, yeah, you are able to see yourself and moving it. So...
Yeah, but I was thinking that if your virtual body lies like this, you will still feel like you're lying down.
Oh, you like,
you will
okay.
be able to see your body there. I don't know if that would make you better or worse. But
yeah, I would say. Basically, there is a study that work on that because they try to work in an open environment. So they were working in this big plane with mountain around, and you have to go to retrieve objects, so moving. And in fact, it was nice to have the body standing and to see it in this position where you can explore the world a bit more.
Okay, thank you so much.